You are now experiencing the digital life with Kevin Lockett.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Digital Life. On today's show, I'll talk to Food and Wine Editor-in-Chief Dana Cowin on her new book, Mastering My Mistakes in the Kitchen. Now, for years, I've tried cooking. It's not like I'm bad at it, but outside of a brownie and a burger here and there, my cooking skills has a long way to go. That's why Dana's book is so great, because it not only has some great recipes, but she's honest in telling foodies and chefs everywhere that she's not a great cook either. I had a great time talking to Dana because we talked journalism, we talked cooking. Her personality is so great and so refreshing. She's just a fun person to talk to. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Dana Cowin, author of Mastering My Mistakes in the Kitchen.
Okay, we're talking to Dana Cowin. How are you today?
I am excellent, thank you.
I was looking at your book recently, and like yourself, the very first recipe I mastered were brownies.
Oh, excellent.
Excellent. And I'm glad you wrote the book because that's still the only recipe I have mastered.
Oh, dear me. So when did you master that brownie recipe, if I may ask?
About 15 years ago.
Okay, you've got some catching up to do.
I do. I've tried cooking other things. It's just no matter what I do to the brownies, they always turn out okay. But everything else has all been kind of trial and error, which basically what your book is about. It's all about mastering your mistakes.
Exactly. I found that even though I've been the editor-in-chief of Food and Wine magazine for 20 years, and I know so much about food, the one place where I sort of fall down is in the kitchen, where I just don't have enough practice and I don't have enough patience to have the recipes really turn out exactly the way I want them. So I decided that instead of just being a failed cook and a good editor, I would try to up my cooking game, and I did that by asking 65-star chefs to come with me into the kitchen and tell me how to do it right, and it's been such a fantastic experience.
The first line of your book said, I'm going to be honest, I am not a great cook. When you wrote that line, did you have any apprehension of saying that? Because you're immediately putting yourself out there and setting the tone for the rest of the book.
I was a little bit concerned because, I think there's a certain expectation both in the food world and among my readers at Food and Wine that I would be an expert at all aspects of food, wine, publishing. But what I really decided was that it was important to share that I didn't really know how to cook, and it was important for a couple of reasons. One of them is that I feel I'm quite a bit like the Food and Wine readers. A lot of readers are much better cooks than I am, but for those who just enjoy the food lifestyle, which is what I do, I love the food lifestyle, and want to learn, I want to say, I'm on your side. We are starting at the same place, and I'm going to learn, and I want you to come along on this journey and learn with me.
So how did you and Julia Turshen come together for this book? Because I listened to a lot of interviews, and they were all great. But I actually want to focus on Julia a bit because she's your main partner in crafting this book.
Oh, Julia was fantastic. So I went through my entire life looking back and thought, what are the recipes that I have loved and what are the recipes that I have really messed up? And I made a list. It was a very, very long list. And then I went to Julia and I said, can you help me write up these recipes? Some of them were just ideas. Some of them were based on dishes that we'd once published in Food and Wine magazine. Some of them were based on dishes that I'd eaten in restaurants. And so she was a phenomenal collaborator because she had a very good and what I would call modern sensibility for food. She knew to make the recipes light and easy, and we both believe in cutting out steps that are not important, but leaving in the steps that are, and making sure that the recipes are absolutely foolproof. What the real joke of this cookbook would have been, if readers tried to use the book and they made mistakes. I had to be sure that the recipes were absolutely foolproof. And so Julia wrote the recipes, and then she cooked the food, and then I tasted the food to be sure it was what I had in my memory or in my mind, and then we tweaked the recipes, and then she revised them, and then I had a whole other crew of people come and retest the recipes and make whatever adjustments were necessary, again, to be sure that the recipes themselves were going to be absolutely error-free.
Yeah. And during this whole process, you two used TaskRabbit in a very ingenious way.
Oh, my gosh. TaskRabbit was the greatest thing. So Julia was in Brooklyn and I was in Midtown Manhattan, and we would pick the day that I was going to, taste. Let's say she would do 7 recipes in one day and need to send them to me, and she just went online and got a TaskRabbit to pick up the food and drop it off. And we had a nice series of TaskRabbits. I kept thinking that, somehow we would end up with one loyal TaskRabbit, but we had a whole field of TaskRabbits.
A field of TaskRabbits. I just see all these little bunnies.
Yeah.
Stuff. Staying with the social media vibe for a second. So a lot of people, when they travel, they use Yelp when they check out restaurants. For someone like yourself who talk to different chefs and different people, when you travel, do you talk to different chefs and say, hey, should I check out this place? Do you use something like Yelp? Or do you just say, hey, I'm in a new city, I want to venture out there and just test it out and see what's great out there?
That is a fantastic question. Before I go on any trip, I reach out to my trusted crew, which would be Kate Crater here at Food and Wine, who's the restaurant editor who knows everybody and everything and has traveled so much. Anywhere I go, she's always been there before me. And then we have stringers in a lot of cities, so I will check in with them. And then I will check with chefs who are friends. So that's my 3-tier checking process. It's all very hand-knit. And then I'll, of course, look if we've done a piece in Food and Wine, I'll look back and see what we've done. But that's my strategy. I'm not a Yelper.
And I read someplace you were in an interview and you were talking about what makes a great culinary team for a chef. I want to switch it around a bit. What makes a great magazine team for someone like yourself?
I think magazine making is all about a team, which is what makes it such, magazine making such a great sport. And that is also the reason why I could be the editor of Food and Wine for 20 years and not know how to cook, because I have an extraordinary team. And the teamwork here is a very creative process. The editors come up with ideas, and so you need team members who are really great at finding out what's new and being excellent communicators and excellent trend seekers. And then you have to have a team that can realize those ideas visually. So it's fine to have the information, but a magazine is made great when the visuals bring that information to life. So to have an incredible photo and design team is essential. And then if it's a magazine like Food and Wine, the information has to be 100% reliable, and that means every recipe having to be perfectly tested. So you absolutely need a great test kitchen that understands recipe writing and editing. And then, the people who have the less glamorous jobs like fact-checking and production, it's all very important. Everybody plays an absolutely essential role on the team, and if any one of those areas is weak, then the magazine would show it, and the reader would know it, and that would be bad.
Going back to the book, now I'm based in Akron, Ohio, which is outside of Cleveland, and one of the chefs that you worked with was Michael Simon. So,
I love Michael Simon. He's the best.
Yeah, so what was it like working with Michael?
Oh, my gosh. I love Michael so much. Any time I have a conversation with him, it ends with a big laugh, that famous Michael Simon laugh. And in working on recipes with him, he is so open and so kind and, knows everything that there is to know about pork. So it was, it was very easy for him to find a way to fix my mistakes in the pork ragu that we made together.
And I enjoyed the pictures in the book, and there was a picture of you with Andrew Zerman, and it looked like you were saying, no, don't do that, and you were saying, no, I have this. It was a funny picture, so it's like you had a lot of fun with all the different chefs making the photograph.
I had a great time with the chefs. With Andrew Zimmern, he was teaching me how to flip peanuts in a pan, and he was just waiting for those peanuts to all fall on the floor. And a couple of times the peanuts did fall on the floor. That wasn't so bad. And then I felt like I totally had mastered. I really understood that swift motion. It's like you push forward and pull back, and then your peanuts won't fall on the floor, and you can graduate to chicken. So I graduated to flipping chicken, but unfortunately, I guess I didn't quite have that muscle memory yet because the chicken landed all over the floor.
Oh.
Yeah, but then I learned something, which was great because I had learning experiences every day. And the learning experience there is that when I picked up the chicken, Andrew said to me, "So what does it feel like?" And I said, "Well, it feels slimy." And he said, "That's right. That's what velvet chicken feels like before it's cooked." So the chicken is velveted by coating it in a cornstarch. And so I learned something even though I got the food on the floor.
I guess there's lessons in everything that you do.
There are lessons every minute of the day. There really are.
One of the recipes I think I might try because it looked so good was the jerk lamb. And that was actually written by Paul Chung, who actually worked in the mailroom for Food and Wine. So, you have all these great recipes working with different chefs, but even a person in the mailroom can have a great recipe.
Yes, so it was Julia and I tweaked that recipe, but Paul Chung, who was in the mailroom, had a fantastic recipe for jerk that is, to this day, one of the Food and Wine editor's favorite recipes ever. And we have a great relationship with the guys in the mailroom, and he had great Jamaican recipes, and that was just among one of our favorites. So we look for inspiration everywhere. We're very equal opportunity inspiration seekers.
Towards the end of the book, you had 13 vital pieces of equipment. And two of them that stood out to me was number 13, which was a smartphone, and number 1, which was a microwave.
Yes. I found that a lot of chefs have secret uses for the microwave. And so until I began this book, the only thing I really did in the microwave was make popcorn. I didn't even reheat things because I feel like it's just as easy to reheat in a pot. But, Jose Andres taught me to pop open oysters in a microwave. There's amazing things that a microwave can do to make things easier. So I sort of loved that. And then the smartphone, every single chef that I worked with pulled out the smartphone as a timer. And it made me feel bad for anyone whose business was making timers because clearly the smartphone has taken control of that part of the market.
Were there any tips that didn't make the book, or after the book was printed, someone came to you with a great idea that just didn't make the book that you wished, that you could put in a paperback version?
Well, there are lots and lots of tips that, I learned since the book. And one of them, I was on a radio show it's called On the Menu, and I was asked how to test for the ripeness of an avocado because I have a recipe where a ripe avocado is involved. And, I said, well, you put it in the palm of your hand, which is what I had been taught. But you don't pinch it. You should just never pinch your avocado. And the host of the show said, actually, what you can do is you can float the avocado in water. And if the avocado floats, it's ripe. And I just thought that was the neatest little tip. As someone said, well, that's nice, but that's not something you can do in the supermarket. But in the supermarket, you want to get it underripe so that when you get it home, you have a little bit of time before you have to use it, assuming you're not making guacamole that very night.
I've read that you love giving dinner parties. So what makes a great dinner party?
I love throwing dinner parties. It's, I don't have a sport that I do, so dinner parties are probably the closest I come. Use up a lot of energy. I have a lot of enthusiasm for them. And I think that for me, the first thing that's very important is for the hostess to be relaxed. I used to throw parties and I was so not relaxed because I wanted everything to be perfect. And so I've learned to mellow out a little bit. And one way I learned to mellow out is by having food that is mostly prepared by the time my guests come, and also having the kitchen clean, because it always makes me feel more relaxed if the kitchen is clean. And I'll do one thing at the very last minute. But I think that the key to a dinner party more than the food is really the people and making sure that you have the right mix, because there's nothing like you could have the greatest food in the world, but if your guests end up having nothing to say to each other, that is not a good dinner party.
Is it important maybe to fix up as far as like putting together different crowds of people, like people who don't even know each other, or should the people have some type of commonality between each other?
I love to pull people together who have something in common and something different. So I'll think about people who, maybe they have an interest in art, but one person's job is to be a swim instructor and one person's job is to be a stockbroker, but they both have this passion in common. And I try when I put together a table to be sure that there's like an understated leitmotif through the evening. So either everybody is interested in farming or everybody's interested in art or art and education, so that that naturally, even though they might not know each other or they might not be in the same field or they might not even be from the same country, they'll have something to talk about because people are so driven by their passions. The passion will be what prevails.
And what have you learned about yourself while promoting the book?
Well, I learned a lot from cooking for the book and writing down the recipes, working with Julia. I discovered that I called myself a not very good cook, which is true, but it turns out that I'm actually just not I'm not as focused as I could be. And I didn't really think that was my problem in cooking. I thought my problem in cooking was that I didn't have good technique and I never went to cooking school. But it was a huge life lesson to discover that the key to success in the kitchen was really focus. And I felt like once I learned that in the kitchen, it was time to apply that to the rest of my life. And the other thing that I realized was that you can get better at something. I've been very, very, very fortunate in that a lot of the things that I like to do, I'm good at, which saves me from doing things I don't like to do, because I like to do things where I have some facility. But in the kitchen, it turns out, if you work hard at it, you can get better. I hadn't really had that experience before. So now I'm really dedicated to trying to do things that I, hadn't focused on. And that's a huge takeaway from this whole project and the whole tour.
And finally, I always heard the name Jacques Pepin. What makes him a great teacher?
Jacques Pepin is probably America and perhaps the world's greatest teacher because he knows the fundamentals of cooking so deeply, and he's not distracted by fads. And so when he teaches you something, he teaches you with decades, and I mean decades, 70 years of food knowledge. And there just aren't that many people who have been in the kitchen for 70 years and can teach you.
Well, Dana Cowin, thank you for the conversation. If people want to check out you or check out your book, where can they go?
masteringmymistakes.com. And, thank you. It's been lovely talking to you. I hope you take on more than the brownie. You have to pick one recipe from my book and, try it and let me know how it goes.
I will. And finally, while I was doing my research, I had no idea that you're a breast cancer survivor. And my mom, she battled breast cancer. She survived, and she's passed away a while ago. But I always enjoy talking to breast cancer survivors, and I see you were full of life, and you're always doing things, so it's great to talk to you.
Thank you. I feel some people say that if you've, been through cancer, when you're on the other side, you embrace life even more fervently. I'm not sure that that's completely the case, but it's a lovely theory, and having a positive attitude, I think, helps with cancer and it helps with life.
True. Oh, and finally, what does FW Scout mean? I saw that on your Instagram and Twitter. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I thought FW might be food and wine, but I wasn't sure.
You are 100% correct. FW Scout means Food and Wine Scout because I'm always scouting for new ideas and new foods and new things to drink, new ways to do things, new destinations. So I think of myself as FW Scout.
And what's the latest find that you found so far? What's the latest thing that you come across?
Well, I'm very excited to try this new restaurant in New York. I'm going tonight called Cosme from a chef named Enrique Olvera. And So I'm spying a lot of interest in the foods of Mexico, and he is a chef who has an extraordinary restaurant in Mexico City. So that's marrying up the trend with some real-life experience, which is, of course, the best thing.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy your night then.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank Dana Cowin for being a great guest on The Digital Life. Make sure you check out her book, Mastering My Mistakes in the Kitchen, which features chefs like Roy Choi, Marcus Samuelson, Mario Batali, and great cooks and chefs across the country in your local bookstores and online. Also be sure to follow Dana at FW Scout on Twitter and Instagram. That's FW Scout. And be sure to check out Food and Wine Magazine online and at your local newsstand or bookstore. Before I go, I have a Twitter and Instagram question for you. Tweet or tag me at Kevin Lockett with a dish that you recently cooked. It could be perfection or burnt to a crisp. But whatever the picture is, tweet or tag me at Kevin Lockett on Twitter and Instagram with a picture of a dish that you recently cooked. All right, everybody. It's The Digital Life. I'm Kevin Lockett, and I'm out.
The Digital Life with Kevin Lockett.